Below is a detailed, source-cited report of major Ohio government actions that occurred on December 15, 2025, organized by category: executive actions, legislative activity, enforcement administrative actions, and public events meetings. Each factual statement is followed by a citation to the relevant published source. Direct answer: one sentence. On December 15, 2025, Ohio state government actions included Governor DeWine announcing economic development awards for 17 projects, the Controlling Board meeting to consider agency spending items, the General Assembly approving comprehensive changes to the state's cannabis hemp laws that were sent to the governor, public statements and events on federalism by legislative leaders in Columbus, and related executive administrative adjustments and communications from the governor's Office 18725. Executive actions and announcements. Governor Mike DeWine announced award commitments for 17 economic development projects that together are projected to create 2,347 jobs and more than $1.1 in investments. The announcement is dated December 15, 2025, and was issued by the governor's office with project and investment totals provided in the release 1. The governor's office published a separate executive order notice issued earlier in December, Executive Order 2025-09D, concerning an emergency amendment to Rule 41-2360(8) of the Ohio Administrative Code, Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. That executive order notice appears on the governor's website in mid-December and is part of the administration's regulatory activity for the month 5. Legislative activity: bills, votes, resolutions. The Ohio legislature passed extensive legislation revising Ohio's recreational cannabis statute and adding a ban on intoxicating hemp products. The legislation was approved by lawmakers and subsequently sent to Gov. DeWine for signature as of December 15, 2025, per Contemporaneous Reporting 7-3. Reporting highlights that the package both revises elements of the voter-approved marijuana law and imposes a ban on intoxicating hemp products, sometimes described in media as juiced-up hemp or intoxicating hemp beverages, with a timeline that could allow parts to take effect in the following months if signed 3-7. On December 15, 2025, a multi-state gathering of legislative leaders took place in Columbus, an inaugural assembly of state legislative leaders facilitated by the National Conference of State Legislatures, producing a public statement urging federal respect for state authority and resolutions on federalism. The gathering included Ohio legislative leaders and invited bipartisan participation and procedural actions recorded on December 16, 2025, reporting about the Assembly's proceedings beginning in Columbus near that Controlling Board and other oversight administrative meetings. The Ohio Controlling Board held its scheduled public meeting on December 15, 2025, to provide oversight and consider approval of certain capital and operating expenditures submitted by state agencies. The Ohio Channel lists the Controlling Board program for that date, indicating the board's review role for agency spending items on December 15-8. Enforcement actions, regulatory changes, and administrative measures. The governor issued or publicized at least one executive order, Executive Order 2025-09D, explicitly amending an Ohio Administrative Code rule for the Bureau of Workers' Compensation on an emergency basis. The governor's media page lists that executive order and its subject on a mid-December posting 5. Legislative action to ban intoxicating hemp products, described above, constitutes a regulatory statutory enforcement change. If signed, it will prohibit certain intoxicating hemp products from being sold outside licensed channels and will change enforcement posture toward Delta 8/hemp-derived intoxicants in Ohio 3-7. Public events, statements, and local impacts. Governor DeWine publicly commented on the potential local economic consequences of federal actions affecting immigrant populations on December 15, 2025, reporting quotes and paraphrases about concern for Haitians losing temporary protected status and potential labor/economic impacts in Western Ohio, as part of the administration's public statements that day 4. The multi-state legislative assembly in Columbus produced public remarks and a joint statement calling for federal deference to state authority and identifying topics for future cross-state cooperation. Reporting indicates the assembly convened leaders from more than 30 states and issued initial procedural outcomes and resolutions around that gathering, coverage dated December 16 describing the Columbus meeting. 2. Key officials and agencies involved, as documented on Around Deck, 15, 2025. Governor Mike DeWine announced the 17 Project Economic Development slate and is the recipient of legislation for signature concerning cannabis hemp changes and is signatory for executive orders listed on the governor's Site 175. Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, subject of an emergency administrative code amendment via Executive Order 2025-09D5. Ohio Controlling Board convened publicly on Deck 15, 2025 to consider agency capital and operating spending items 8. Ohio General Assembly legislative leaders enacted cannabis hemp legislation and participated in the multi-state legislative assembly convened in Columbus. Legislative leaders from Ohio and other states are identified in assembly reporting 7-2. Relevant dates and timing. December 15, 2025. Governor's announcement of 17 projects, economic development release dated December 15, 2025, 1. December 15, 2025, Ohio Controlling Board public meeting, program entry listed for Deck, 15, 2025, 8. December 15, 2025, press and reporting indicate the legislature sent the cannabis hemp reform package to Gov. DeWine on or before this date, and media reported the bill heading to the governor on Deck. 15, 2025 7-3, mid-December 2025, reported Deck. 12:15, Governor's website lists Executive Order 2025-09D Emergency Amendment as a recent executive action in the middle of the month. The order is referenced on the governor's site in a Deck. 12:15 time frame 5, December 15-16, 2025, coverage of the inaugural assembly of state legislative leaders in Columbus appears dated Deck. 16 and describes sessions that took place in Columbus around Deck. 15-16-2, notes on sources, scope and limitations. This report draws on official governor's office releases and administrative notices, public meeting schedules, and contemporary news reporting for December 15-16, 2025 1587234. The Controlling Board agenda listing confirms a public meeting on Deck. 15 but does not, in the listing alone, provide meeting minutes or final votes. For details about individual items approved or disapproved at that meeting, the Controlling Board minutes or a recorded webcast, Ohio channel, would provide item level. The governor's economic development announcement provides project totals, job estimates, and investment amounts in aggregate but separate project-level grant award documents, would list precise company names, grant amounts, and project locations if those details are required. 1. Reporting on the cannabis hemp legislation reflects media summaries and the fact the bill was transmitted to the governor. The exact statutory language, enrolled bill numbers, and effective dates will be determinable from the enrolled bill text, and the Secretary of State's filing once the governor acts, sign, veto, or allow to become law. 7-3. If you want, I can retrieve the Controlling Board meeting minutes or recording from Deck. 15 to list each item considered, and the board's votes. 8. Pull the enrolled bill texts and section-by-section summary for the cannabis hemp legislative package that was sent to Gov. DeWine so you can see exact statutory changes and effective dates. 7-3. Provide the full governor's economic development release with the 17 project names, locations, and award amounts extracted into a table for reference. 1.